Okay, welcome class to Unit 2. In the Myers textbook, it is Unit 3. We are exploring the biological basis. The chapter, if you took a look at it, which was your assignment tonight, is divided up into 3 big sections. 2A, in the textbook it's 3A. It's going to cover neural processing and the endocrine system. We'll spend about a week on the first little small subsection. 2B, which is 3B in the text, covers all the structures of the brain, and we'll spend another week on that. And then 2C, a small section in the back, talks about genetics and evolution, and that's 3C in the textbook. All right. I want you to be reminded that some of the terms and people you may need to reference in the book. I do a pretty good job covering most of the material, but you might come across something that's left out. You are still responsible for the material in the textbook. This section covers pages 52 and 54 in the Myers textbook. So the big ideas, we are going to do part 1 in section 2A. Remember, this is the section that's looking at neurons and the endocrine system. What I hope you are able to understand by the end of this presentation is who Franz Gall was, who really explores biological basis, and then the neuron and parts of the neuron. So let's kind of looking at the brain. The early studies of people who studied the brain was this man named Franz Gall. He studied futurology, which he believed in the 1800s that the skull and bumps on the skull impacted our behavior. So if we have a certain bump in the front portion of our brain, it may mean that we are more prone to be smarter. Okay? There were 29 distinct areas, 29 societies that traveled around the world preaching his theory. He really believed that he had a good idea here. What we found out today is the size of your brain and the bumps on your brain don't really necessarily lead to anything. But futurology highlighted the idea that maybe a certain area of the brain is responsible for certain types of behavior. So the back of the head, let's say today, the back of the head is responsible for vision. And now we know that that region, that small region in the back of the head, is specifically for just vision. Okay, so getting into who explores the brain today, they're called biological psychologists. And we covered this in Unit 1. Right? We studied the biopsychosocial model. So how does all of this tie into Unit 2? Well, the bio section is what we're going to be spending a lot of time on in the next couple weeks, exploring how the brain works and the specific structures of the brain. And biological psychologists are really responsible for that. They study the link between the biological activity and the psychological activity. They continue to expand our knowledge and understanding on sleep and dreams, understanding depression, schizophrenia, what causes us to be hungry, what causes our sex drives to kind of fluctuate. It looks at stress and different diseases, and we're still learning more and more every single day in how our brains are changing and adapting. Now, the smallest structure of the nervous system. Okay? These are neurons. And what neurons is they help send messages from your brain to your toes. Okay? From your brain to your stomach. Right? They're nerve cells. So many of you have explored cells in science class. This is basically a cell for the brain and for your behavior. The central nervous system, which is composed of all neurons in the brain, is also made up of glial cells. And these are the cells that are also work with the neurons to help take care of them. So you may see that word come across. They're also cells. So there's different types of neurons that you do need to know. Okay. First one is sensory neurons. They carry messages from the body's tissues to the sensory organs, and then they go inward to the brain and the spinal cord for processing. So let's say I just stepped on a tack. Okay. Before I even register that that's pain, okay, that message goes from my toe to my nerve, okay, up my leg on the nerve, to the spinal cord, all through a sensory neuron. Okay, and then it goes up to the brain. Okay. Once it gets up to the brain, what it travels on is the message then travels to an inner neuron. And these are neurons that communicate within the brain. Okay, so they're going to send that message to your inner neuron. Then the inner neuron is going to send the message to motor neuron. And these are then messages that help send, hey, a message to the bottom of your foot, and may tell you, oh my gosh, pain. And might have your leg reflex move away from the tack or pull away from what you just stepped at. So these are messages that are outgoing from the brain to the muscles or the glands. So make sure you're able to define each of these and make sure you can give an example of how they're used. So the nose of Rainier is right between. That's not in the test. They see that on a test question. Okay, and that is the end of page 52 to pretty much 54. Looking at, again, we covered who Franz Gall was. We covered the biological psychologists and their roles. And again, we covered the importance of a neuron and the parts of the neuron. See you in class.